Although we have nothing to do with Muslims, Yaa-Nun has warned them also that they would get no respect in this country because of the Middle Eastern conflict. Muslims in this country are being attacked by Christian extremists and Jews. It's their turn. They always attack other people's religion and way of life. Now it's their turn and they can't take it. In the beginning, when we first donned the garb, he told us that we would eventually have to take it off. It was the sisters who asked for the veil, not him. He told them it's not our dress. Knowing that it was becoming dangerous for us to adorn that Muslim attire, it was our responsibility to get out of that garb. Dr. Martin Luther King had a responsibility to his followers. He should have never allowed them to be tortured in the streets the way they were. As the leader of a congregation, Yaa-Nun had a responsibility to our community and their safety. The purpose of a leader is to know where to lead his flock, and wise enough to know when to fold them and know where to hide. Islam was just one of our degrees in our lodge, that's all. It is also hypocritical for Muslims to sit in a country like America and say that America is the great shaitan, when you are living in its luxuries and are partaking in the delicacies of what you call the beast. Muslim women and men are all over America in the amusement parks such as Disney World, Great America and the likes, going to clubs, and parties, etc. Most of these Muslims flew directly over here from Arab countries where they know the Sharia Islamic law, Quran 24:2. Yet, they come over here and try to play American. And Arab women are taking off their traditional garbs and trading them in for clothes that are revealing, which is something that was unheard of during the time of the Prophet Muhammad. If they say that was 1,400 years ago, so it doesn't apply now, if that is true, why are they following a 1,400-year-old book called the Quran? They will even physically attack you if you say something that they don't like about the Quran. How about throwing their Islamic Sunnah away? Of course, they wouldn't do that. They would rather be hypocrites and play two ends from the middle. And most of the American Muslims said we were not Muslims, so how can they ask us why we took off our Islamic garb? They said we were never Muslims, but they are phonies. Once upon a time in an Arab country, this would not have been allowed. However, when President Hafez al-Assad came to power in the year 1970 AD after a military coup, when he overthrew Salah Jadid, whom he helped put into power, many laws have changed. Law 10, as it is known in Syria, was enacted by Hafez al-Assad, June 1991 AD. Its official title is Investment Promotion Law 10. This law allows any and everything to come into the country, Islamic or non-Islamic. This is inclusive of rock music, Paris and Italian fashions, fax machines, televisions, computers, etc. All of these Arabs are hypocrites and none of them really follow the laws of the Quran. However, they will hold one up in a minute and make the declaration La ilaha illa Allah. With all of the Islamic books that Yaa-Nun has put forth, you'd think that they would see the true light. He has been trying to save people, the new Wapians, from this sun, moon, and phallic worship that is neatly packaged called Islam. However, due to what I call a state of triple darkness and tunnel vision, they will never be able to see. They are too caught up in religious fanaticism and fundamentalism, and all of the other isms. Ignorance is dangerous. No base religious fanaticism is also dangerous because it breeds ignorance. And having been born a Muslim, I know exactly how extreme Islam is, that you surpass all logic. It is so extreme that a handful of Arabs and a few Negro Muslim converts, led by a blind sheikh named Omar Abdul Rahman of Egypt, thought that they could topple America by blowing up the World Trade Center in 1993 AD in New York City. Thousands of people were injured and at least 5 people died. Not to mention there were Muslims who worked inside of the building that they blew up. This means that they don't care about hurting their fellow brethren, even though Quran 492 tells you not to. This is the kind of ignorance that New Wapians can do without and by no means condone. They have to keep religion alive because there is much money in religion. It is a racket. If you examine the church, you will see that you need robes, benches, choir stands, pulpits, furniture, curtains, artists, paint, and the list goes on and on. So the church has to stay alive in order to keep these businesses alive. It's so hard for religious people to see the weaknesses in their religion. It is all due to the spell of Leviathan, and religion is a spell. They gave them Islam every way they wanted it. There was the black Muslims for racist, you have the 5% nation who broke away from black Muslims. They are the youth who want their teachings without their military disciplines, yet still racist. You have Sunni Muslims in America, Negro Uncle Toms, those who pretend they are not racist yet hate whomever the Arabs hate. You have the Moorish Science Temple for those who want to know about their rights, the law and their true roots, but also are giving Arab Islam. You have African Muslims, Negroes who want to keep their African culture yet still follow an Arab religion, and the list goes on. They all keep the slave master, the slave trader, which are Arabs, religion. They must let it go. Religion is a spell because it keeps you thinking that someone or something is going to save you. It has you thinking that if you work hard until you die, pray to a spook god, unseen or nothingness who's in a place called heaven, who will give you no correspondence, meaning you will receive nothing until you die, you will then go to meet this god or Allah in a heaven and live happily ever after, and do nothing forever. This is a lazy person's mentality, and what Christians and Muslims teach will be your paradise. Know that the helping hand that you're looking for is at the end of your own arm. If we shouldn't follow religion, then what should we be following? A simple answer that should be able to be answered simply. The 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who? You should follow those beings whom you were made in the image and after the likeness of, the Elohim, personifying as physical beings seen in Egypt and Sumer and the Olmec civilization. They are your woolly-haired beings, the deities bearing 9 ether, or 9 to the 9th power of 9, 999. The Anunnaki Elohim, who in their cream history were created 76 trillion years ago. Arriving from the 8th planet Rizq, of the 19th galaxy Ilion. What? Is the question you ask when you lack understanding. Listen closely. The greater one's mental power is, the greater are the things he or she can do and will do. Your mental power is deeply lacking. This is the biggest block between you and reality, between you and the facts which keep you in a spell of religion, and its spookism, and false promises of all which you will get after you're dead. No one has come back to prove it that you know personally. Where? In the very atmosphere itself does this adverse spell called Leviathan dwell. Leviathan, which is broken down as Levi, law, and Athan, sin, emanates it. It is the ghost spell, or gospel. And the word gospel is ghost spell or spell of the ghost, meaning the spell of the spirit god. Leviathan were the laws of the sea, by which the reptilians lived. These laws were named after the serpent Leviathan. When? Now. Why? Because you refuse to fight this ghost spell. How? How does this spell work? Ghost works by spell or fascination and is therefore spellbinding, and 9 ether works by reason through knowledge, wisdom, and overstanding. The only way this opium-like hypnosis can be destroyed is by right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right overstanding, on to right reasoning. Check things out. Ask questions. Don't believe anyone or book. Do your own research, and that's what Yaa-Nun says and why he is not liked. The spell of Leviathan is an evil hypnotic spell of sleep of your subconscious mind. A spell of spiritual ignorance and racial blindness, you have been placed under. The spell was cast on us in the beginning of the first moon cycle, which was the cycle of the Canaanites who came about 6,000 years ago with the birth of Canaan, who is the son of Ham and Halima. This was the first moon cycle of the Canaanites. In actuality, it would be the second moon cycle in the 5,996th year or the last 4 years of the Canaanites' 6,000-year reign. The last moon cycle of this equinox is going out and the sun cycle of this equinox is now coming back in. The spell of Leviathan, also called the spell of Kingu, was cast 4,004 years before 2,000 years ago, rounding it off to 6,000 years. Meaning, Canaan was born in the year 4000 BC, and down to the year 1 BC was the birth of Jesus, up until the year 2000 AD, which is the end of the evil one's rule. Have you ever wondered why certain African countries are Christian? Have you ever wondered why little islands that you have never heard of have a large European Christian population where they once had their own culture? The answer is simple: food converts people. They come disguised as the Red Cross supplying people with basic necessities and of course outdated and rejected medication to make the innocent think it is some type of miracle cure. They learn your language, they live with you for a period of time and they win your trust, so when they come to beat up on you, take over your land and steal all of your resources, you can't say anything because they fed, clothed, sheltered, took care of your medical needs and gave you religion and a new god to worship that doesn't even look like you. With this religion they give you a belief system that one day the person that is hanging from the cross called Jesus, who again doesn't even look like you, is going to save you, so no matter what happens, you just keep believing while they are kicking you in the head. Yaa-Nun told you to be aware of their tactics, so when they come with it, you will know how to handle it. And all you have to do is look around and you will see that it is fact. Take for instance the image of Jesus. Whenever you see a depiction of Jesus you see him in everyone's image except Nubians, someone with dark skin and woolly hair. And if you ask about it, you become a racist. It's not fair. Yaa-Nun did not teach it to me and I won't teach it to my children, to give them an inferiority complex. The Chinese have their own Jesus in their image and after their likeness, he's called Buddha. The Mexicans have their own Jesus in their image and after their likeness, he's called Jesus. The Native Americans have their own Jesus in their image and after their likeness, Star People. The Koreans have their own Jesus in their image and after their likeness and he's called Sun Myung Moon. The Nigerians have their own Jesus in their image and after their likeness, right or wrong? The Negroes have a pale-skinned straight-haired Jesus, that's not right. Yet when it comes to the American Negro, who are really Moors, the Nubians of Egypt and Olmecs of Atlantis, America, they can't do it. For hundreds of years you have been worshipping a European Jesus. When Yaa-Nun first began to put out pictures of the prophets, especially Jesus and Muhammad, people called him a blasphemer and told him he didn't have the right to put out pictures of the prophets. Yet, there have been pale images floating around of Jesus and Muhammad for years and no one said anything about that. These images have been in American Negro churches and mosques for years, and the sad part is that they went along with it. People who are in their 60s, 70s and 80s now, didn't care who they were worshipping, and they would hurt you if you tried to tell them anything different about their blonde hair, blue-eyed, hippie that they were worshipping. However, things have changed since then and the younger generation is no longer going for it, although they are still trying to stamp these images in their heads also. It goes into the subconscious mind, so whenever you do see a picture of a black Jesus, you see it in front of you yet, you subconsciously still say he's pale. However, there is a reawakening going on in the minds of the young. Following these different religions is dangerous. Through religion, they are going to dupe the unknowing religious fanatic which is going to lead a lot of people to their death. While we are on the subject of religion, Yaa-Nun told you that there was more to the Jesus story than the Bible will ever reveal. He told us that Yeshua, Jesus, was married to Mary Magdalene and gave birth to children. That is what the wedding of Cana is all about in John 2:1-11. When Yaa-Nun wrote that Jesus had a wife and kids in his books years ago, Christians were saying, "Not my Jesus." Now articles are popping up everywhere. Just face the fact that you can't hide the truth. It is too powerful. Needless to say, Christians were upset and called him a heathen. Once again, there are articles popping up months and years after he said it and now people are just taking it into consideration. What is really sad is that the scholars who are holding the Dead Sea Scrolls have read it and know that the Bible that you are holding in your hand today is an incomplete and inconsistent text. However, there is a place where you can get all the facts and truth, and that is the Holy Tabernacle. You can find the entire story of Yeshua, Jesus, in the Holy Tablets chapter 15, the Christians. There have been many religious wars such as the Crusades, that have been fought because one sect of people felt that you should believe as they believe. And just like Islam, Christianity came converting by way of the sword. There were organizations that tried to battle with us such as the Sunni Muslims out of New York, Masjid Taqwa out of New York, Masjid Farouk out of New York, Ashahud out of Philadelphia, Masjid Salam out of New Jersey, and Masjid Mu'min out of New York, which have not progressed in the past 20 years and in most cases don't even exist. Why? Because facts support facts and that is what they didn't have. Let's not forget the infamous Bilal Phillips and a bunch of old Ansars who attempted to defame Yaa-Nun in the community. However, it was to no avail. Bilal Phillips was just another Uncle Tom Negro from Canada by way of Jamaica and was being funded by pale Arabs. That is why when his silly little book came out, Ansar Cult Book, the entire community pulled our resources together to smash all of the lies and gave all of those who wanted to know the truth the rebuttal to the slanderers, edition 197. And by no means could he make a comeback because the truth always prevails. You cannot hide facts because it always come out. Even Bilal Phillips has to now bear witness to the power of Yaa-Nun's pen. For years Yaa-Nun depicted the Ansaru Allah community as a beehive. You can walk past a beehive all day, a million times. As long as you don't bother that beehive, no bees will come out of it. They are in there busy working and building. The Ansaru Allah community, now known as Wu-Sabat, is busy working and building. You can see that because we're all over the world. We weren't bothering anyone. And we were living our lives. However, you have little storefront organizations like the Israeli Church from New York, Bilal Phillips, a Jamaican from Canada, and all of their followers who came and stuck their heads in our beehive and got the bees mad, and now we are stinging them with facts. When they read the facts, it was sweet to the mouth and bitter to the belly because the facts were conflicting with all of the poisons that had already settled in their belly. And now they wish they would have left us alone, because they are not able to deal nor can they handle what Yaa-Nun has to say, and we know it's scaring you. All of the tablets that Yaa-Nun told you about years ago are now all contained in one text called the Holy Tablets that has been circulating in book form now since 1995 AD. Some of his old disciples saw the original text with their own eyes. Some of them were even given the privilege of reading and touching it in its original form before the public did over 25 years ago. Listen, what other person do you know that came with all of these gifts for you and asked for nothing in return? When people ask him what can you give him in return, anyone will tell you he says, "If you give me anything, let it be your love, and if you take from me, let it be mine." After all that he has said and has proven to people over and over again, they still want to follow the likes of Ben Ami Ben Israel, Minister Louis Farrakhan, Fred Price, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and the list can go on and on. None of these men have proven themselves, insofar as putting out their own translation of the Torah, Revelation, or the Quran for their congregation. Yaa-Nun has given us our own scripture called the Holy Tablets. What other leader do you know that has done this? Yahweh ben Yahweh made an attempt to do his own Bible. However, it was nothing more than the King James European version of the Bible with some sketches of Bible characters depicted as Nubians. Nice try. However, it was not their own stuff or their own translation of the Torah, which they say they follow. He has had an open question forum for over 25 years, answering questions no other leader could answer. People tried their hardest to ask him questions that they thought he could not answer. Continually they would come and continually they were sent on their way with all of their questions answered. He is not a lecturer or preacher, he says I am a teacher. Tell me this, what other leader do you know that has walked you through different schools of learning giving us the most profound doctrine in our story? What other leader do you know that has done this? Performed miracles right before your eyes? What other leader do you know that has done this? Has given you your own language called Wu-Sabat? What other leader do you know that has done this? He lives with his congregation hand in hand, living for, of, and by each other. What other leader do you know that has done this? The reason why these different leaders have never lived in a community environment is because it reveals the truth about everything. In other words, if the leadership is lacking in his or her responsibilities, it will show. Now many people talk about Yaa-Nun, saying he does and doesn't do. However, you have a way of checking because you live with the people. Other leaders can't afford to live with their people because they will start to question them and they don't have any answers for the people. In the case of an imam, after Jummah they go about their business, so they can be doing anything from Friday to Friday. In the case of a Christian of any denomination, the leader goes from Saturday to Saturday, Sunday to Sunday and any other day that they meet, doing whatever they feel like. However, in a community where you live right under the leader, you can see just what he's doing. They would rather form these Friday go to meeting masjids, or Sunday go to eat chicken churches. Thus, everyone does their own thing, and the individualism remains. He has given you your own culture. What other leader do you know that has done this? He has given you your own way of life. What other leader do you know that has done this? He has taught you an indisputable doctrine that no one can handle. He is breaking the spell of Leviathan. And no one else can. And that is the point in this mission, which is to break the spell of Leviathan, raise the 144,000 worthy souls who will not be under the spell. The 144,000 are pre-encoded at this time with the help of the facts that Baba put out. That means that their DNA structures were genetically designed to go off at the sound of Yaa-Nun's voice and reading the scrolls, like an alarm clock at a designated moment in their own lives in order to accommodate more facts and right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right understanding. The time for genetic alignment was from the year 1970 AD to the year 2000 AD, which marks the end of the moon cycle, which symbolizes the evil one's rule, and the beginning of the sun cycle.